17 years ago, an elderly couple vanished in broad daylight in San Francisco's Mission District, leaving behind a steaming dinner table and a shattered family. Authorities initially suspected everything from a robbery to a ransom, kidnapping to gang involvement, but with no bodies found and insufficient leads to pursue, the investigation gradually hit a dead end. Yet, through all those years, their children never gave up hope, clinging to the slim chance that their parents were still out there somewhere. Then one day, when next-generation DNA technology was applied to a sample forgotten for over a decade, a startling detail emerged, powerful enough to reshape the entire case and shock the community. Before diving into this chilling story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on other cold case files. In the summer of 2008, San Francisco's Mission District buzzed with the calls of small grocery stores. The smell of grilled corn mingling with exhaust fumes and Latin music drifting from cramped apartments. On the morning of June 14th, neighbors saw Miguel Herrera, 82, a lean but spry man, walking slowly to buy his usual lottery ticket at the corner store, while his wife, Elena Herrera, 78, tended to red geranium pots on their front porch. The scene was ordinary. No one could have imagined it would be the last time the couple was seen in peace. By late morning, their daughter Carolina, the only child still living nearby, stopped by for lunch. As she stepped onto the porch, an unsettling sight hit her. The front door was ajar, the table set with 2 plates of rice and a still steaming pot of soup, but the house was eerily silent. Carolina called out for her parents, moving from the living room to the kitchen to the bedrooms, but only a heavy silence answered. The phone on a wooden shelf rang suddenly, its shrill tone echoing through the empty rooms, but no one picked it up. Carolina approached and saw the phone was still functional, yet the people she was searching for were gone. On the table, a soup spoon lay unfinished, the food still warm, the door unlocked, as if they'd stepped out briefly and vanished into thin air. A gnawing unease gripped her. Her elderly parents would never leave a meal half-eaten, walk out without keys, or go without their IDs. Trembling, Carolina called her siblings, her voice frantic and fearful over the line. Within minutes, the family gathered, searching the house but finding no trace. By noon, fear turned to panic. Carolina dialed 911, reporting to police that her parents had disappeared, leaving an open house, an unfinished meal, and a terrifying void with no answers. Less than 20 minutes later, the first SFPD patrol car screeched onto the quiet street, followed by a gleaming forensics van in the night. Red and blue lights reflected off window panes, turning the Herrera's familiar home into something alien and cold. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering, while Carolina and a few relatives were asked to stay behind the yellow tape, watching their childhood home become a crime scene. Inside, investigators paused to photograph each room. The living room was tidy, bookshelves neat, upholstered chairs untouched, with no signs of disturbance. In the small kitchen, the soup pot sat on the stove, its surface grease congealing, suggesting it had cooled only within the last 1 to 2 hours. Nearby, 2 bowls were set, one with a soup spoon left askew, evidence someone was about to eat, but left abruptly. The lead officer checked drawers and closets, concluding initially, no signs of forced entry, no missing valuables, not a burglary, but small odd details emerged. On the sofa, Elena's purse sat neatly, containing only a few notes and a handkerchief, but her wallet and familiar keychain were gone. Carolina insisted her mother never separated her wallet from her purse, a decades-long habit. Investigators moved to the back door, where a contentious detail stood out. Miguel's worn leather shoes, always worn when he went out, sat neatly against the wall. His daughter confirmed he never left home without them. If the shoes remained, where had he gone, and how? The question thickened the air. Flashlights swept over the old tiled floor, revealing dried mud in the shape of shoe prints. The prints were larger than Miguel's foot size, with a pattern matching none of the shoes in the house. An officer measured them meticulously, photographed them, and collected samples. This could be the first evidence of a stranger in the Herrera's private home. On the back door's handle, Another investigator noticed a tiny dark blue fabric thread caught in the metal edge. Too small to identify immediately, it was carefully tweezed into an evidence bag. Every action was recorded, labeled, and sent to the forensics lab. The initial scene report filled up: no signs of forced entry, lock intact, victim's purse in place, but wallet and keys missing, strange shoe prints in blue fabric, noted at back door. These dry words laid bare a chilling truth. Someone had entered the Jerez's home, leaving no overt violence. A silent, haunting presence made the room feel suffocating. From the initial findings at the Jerez's home, San Francisco police treated it as an urgent missing persons case. An internal alert went out that evening of June 14th, urging all units to watch for signs of the elderly couple. The next morning, the vibrant Mission District grew even more chaotic as dozens of uniformed officers fanned out through narrow streets, carrying photos of Miguel and Elena Herrera. They knocked on doors, visited grocery stores, and asked locals if anyone had seen the couple since the previous morning. Meanwhile, Carolina and her siblings sat on the curb, eyes fixed on the stream of police cars, hoping for good news. A K-9 unit was deployed that first morning. Dogs sniffed from the back door of the Herrera home, where the strange shoe prints and blue thread were found. They tracked the scent through the backyard and into a small alley behind the house. The trail held for a few hundred meters, but faded at the 23rd Street intersection, lost in the mix of garbage and exhaust. The handler noted, the trail likely ended here, suggesting the victims or a suspect may have entered a vehicle. Undeterred, SFPD expanded the search. They deployed a small drone to scan rooftops and nearby Dolores Park, a few blocks away. High-resolution cameras captured every porch, vacant lot, and park corner where the homeless often gathered. But the footage showed only routine scenes: people jogging, kids picnicking, no trace of the missing couple. Another team checked nearby BART stations, 16th Street Mission and 24th Street Mission, spending hours reviewing dozens of surveillance tapes. The grainy, poorly lit footage yielded nothing. Officers scrutinized every frame but found no sign of Miguel or Elena. Bus stops along Mission and Valencia streets were also checked, but no witnesses clearly recalled seeing the couple board a bus on June 14th. One driver vaguely mentioned possibly seeing an elderly man at a stop but wasn't sure it was Miguel. Questioning neighbors brought a different lid. A woman living across the street swore she saw Miguel talking to a young woman that morning. She described the woman as in her 30s, with long tied-back hair, wearing a light-colored jacket, standing at the Herrera's gate. The conversation was brief, and the neighbor got distracted in her kitchen, noticing nothing more. This statement was logged as a rare bright spot in a nearly fruitless day. Outside, SFPD's outreach team and the family printed and distributed hundreds of flyers with Miguel and Elena's photos. Posters plastered utility poles, bus stops, store windows, and Mission Dolores Church bulletin boards. Alerts aired on Spanish-language radio, urging the Latin community to help. Locals carried the weight of the mystery as they shopped, prayed, or worked. The familiar couple had vanished, as if they'd never existed. Despite all efforts, the first 48 hours passed without progress. No new traces, no cameras capturing their departure, no taxi or bus drivers recalling them. Police returned to the house after 2 days, their report stark. Nothing definitive found. Silence enveloped the case, as if the couple had been erased from San Francisco in an instant. As Carolina leaned into her brother's shoulder, exhaling heavily, investigators felt the same crushing tension. They'd done everything possible in the critical first days, but the faint lead seemed to dissolve into the vast city's endless void. On June 16th, just 2 days after police and the Mission District community exhausted their initial search hopes, a call from Daly City's patrol unit reignited tension at SFPD. A silver-gray sedan, matching the license plate registered to Miguel Herrera, was found abandoned in a quiet Daly City alley, about 10 miles from the Herrera's home. The alley was desolate, rarely trafficked, flanked by graffiti-stained brick walls and littered with trash. hardly a place the elderly couple would have reason to visit. When police arrived, the car's door was barely locked, with no signs of tampering. The vehicle was parked neatly, as if deliberately left behind by someone who then slipped away silently. The forensics team quickly processed the scene. In the trunk, they found a partially used grocery bag containing familiar items: bread, a bag of tomatoes, and milk cartons starting to sour from sitting overnight. A shopping list in Elena's hurried handwriting, pan, leche, tomate, was still inside the plastic bag. This suggested the Herreras had finished shopping and were heading home before vanishing. But why were the groceries left in the car while the couple was not? The back seat drew particular attention. Under UV light, forensics spotted faint, uneven smudges. Tiny debris particles were collected, and preliminary tests confirmed DNA not belonging to Miguel or Elena. The sample was sealed and sent for detailed analysis. In the glove compartment, officers found crumpled notes, a phone number without a name, and a torn page from a pocket calendar. Nothing clearly identified the owner, but their presence hinted someone outside the family had been in the car near the time of the disappearance. Notably, no blood was found in the car, nor signs of a struggle. The airbags were intact, the steering wheel clean, and the driver's seat set to Miguel's usual position. This ruled out a violent accident or assault inside the vehicle. Instead, the evidence suggested the couple was driven by someone else, at least initially without resistance. New questions arose. Why would Miguel and Elena allow a stranger in their back seat? And why was only the car left behind in the alley? The surrounding area was combed. Nearby residents said they didn't recall when the car was parked. Daly City wasn't a place the Herreras frequented. Their community was rooted in the Mission District. Police checked nearby store cameras, but most were broken or recorded blurry footage, capturing only a faint image of a similar car entering the alley around dusk on June 14. The footage was too grainy to identify occupants. A supplemental forensic report noted unfamiliar fingerprints on the rear door and trunk handle, but they were smudged by dust and wear too faint for database comparison. All were archived as evidence. Footprints in the dirt near the car's side matched the type of shoe print found at the Herreras' home, suggesting consistency. The same person was likely present at both the house and the car's abandonment site. For Carolina, learning her parents' car was found without them crushed her. The car was a vital clue, yet their absence from it deepened her helplessness. The vehicle they'd driven for years was there, but they were not. In the report to superiors, the lead investigator wrote, "No blood, no signs of struggle. Victims likely transported by at least one other individual, unclear if voluntary or coerced. Car deliberately abandoned." This was the only conclusion possible then. But its ambiguity pushed the case into another dead end. If Miguel and Elena left with someone they trusted, who was it, and why did they never return? As the car was towed to an impound lot for further analysis, the Daly City alley returned to its usual stillness. The stained walls, smelly trash bins, and mundane traces hid a larger secret. The car was the last tangible remnant of the Herreras, a fragile but vital clue suggesting their disappearance wasn't a simple case of getting lost, but involved the hand of another, a shadowy figure who appeared briefly, only to vanish into the city's depths. A week after Miguel's car was found in Daly City, another call pulled San Francisco police to the East Bay. This time, Oakland PD reported that a local, while sweeping the sidewalk outside a small shop on International Boulevard, found a woman's wallet lying under a tree. Inside were IDs bearing Elena Herrera's name. The wallet was immediately sealed and handed to the team handling the couple's disappearance. The brown wallet was worn, its edges frayed, matching Carolina's description. What puzzled police was that all the cash 20s and 10s was untouched, neatly folded. Personal documents, driver's license, health insurance card, utility bills were jumbled, as if someone had rifled through and shoved them back. A church membership card was tucked among them, further confirming it was Elena's. Forensics examined the wallet closely. Its surface was dusted with road grime, showing no signs of being thrown, It seemed deliberately placed or accidentally dropped. Fingerprint scans yielded only smudged, unusable marks. Inside the lining, technicians found a single dark brown hair. It didn't belong to Elena, whose hair was mostly gray, or Miguel. The hair was sealed and sent for DNA analysis, becoming a new biological clue in a case slipping into stalemate. When news of the wallet spread, the Herrera family was devastated again. Carolina was called to identify it. Seeing her mother's familiar wallet, her hands shook. She confirmed it was the one Elena always carried. Its appearance in Oakland, nearly 20 miles from the Mission District, raised a chilling question: how could a frail elderly woman travel so far alone? More importantly, why was the wallet there without her parents? The lead investigator sketched hypotheses. One possibility: the perpetrator took the wallet and discarded it in Oakland to mislead police into thinking the victims had left San Francisco. This could be a common red herring tactic to stretch investigative resources. Another possibility: Oakland was part of the couple's actual path that day, but the perpetrator cleverly left only one clue behind. The team revisited the discovery site, interviewing locals, shop owners, and passers-by. Some vaguely recalled a young woman passing through that day, but no one confirmed seeing her drop the wallet. Nearby security cameras were either broken or too blurry to capture anything useful. Oakland's usual bustle became a wall of silence, offering no further answers. In the report, the investigator noted, "Highly likely an intentional act, evidence left to mislead. No signs of robbery, as cash remained intact. Purpose unclear. But the perpetrator likely wanted police to believe the victims left the city." Criminal analysts added that perpetrators sometimes discard a victim's item elsewhere to buy time, creating the illusion they're alive and moving. For the Herreras, the wallet's discovery brought no hope, only deeper confusion. It proved someone took Elena's belongings out of the Mission District, but showed they didn't care about money. The perpetrator's motive was darker, harder to grasp. Carolina left the police station that night, clutching a scarf her mother kept in the wallet. Her heart heavy with questions. The wallet was found, but where were her parents? Elena's wallet in Oakland complicated the case, but for San Francisco police, the silver-gray sedan in Daly City remained the key evidence. After towing it to the impound lot, it was sealed and sent to the forensics lab for detailed analysis, seen as the item most likely to hold direct traces of the perpetrator. All hopes rested on scrutinizing every detail in the driver and passenger compartments. In the lab, technicians started with the DNA from the back seat. UV lights and luminol revealed additional biological traces. They collected skin cell fragments mixed with dirt and ran tests. The result: the DNA didn't match Miguel or Elena. This was the most significant find since the disappearance was reported. The unknown DNA was checked against the federal CODIS database. In 2008, the system was limited and no matches were found. The preliminary report stated, "No CODIS match, sample stored for future comparison." This left investigators hopeful yet frustrated. They had proof of a third party, but no identity. Beyond DNA, the lab found fabric fibers on the seat cushions and rear floor mat. Compared to clothing provided by Carolina, items Miguel and Elena often wore, they didn't match. The fibers were dark blue, synthetic, and tightly woven, likely from a jacket or jeans. This matched the blue thread found on the Herrera's back door handle. The consistency of these fibers, in both the house and car, solidified the theory of a stranger's presence. The technical team also lifted fingerprints from the steering wheel, door handles, and glove compartment. Most were smudged, dusty, or wiped clean by weather. Some were clear enough to archive, but too faint for detailed analysis. Officers noted, likely the perpetrator intentionally wiped surfaces, but faint traces remain. The grocery bag in the trunk was also examined. The food, note, and small calendar page were checked for fingerprints, but only blurred marks were found. The evidence painted a scenario: someone was with Miguel and Elena from the grocery store to when the car was left in Daly City. That person sat in the back, leaving DNA and fibers, and possibly drove the car to the secluded spot before abandoning it. The initial lab conclusion was sent to the lead investigator. Evidence indicates the presence of a third individual in the vehicle. DNA and fibers do not belong to the victims. Fingerprints insufficient for identification. Identity cannot yet be determined. This was an answer that both opened a new door and dashed hopes for a quick resolution. In the internal meeting that followed, investigators gathered around a table, reviewing what they had: the car in Daly City, the wallet in Oakland, the blue fiber, the strange shoe prints in the house, and now the unmatched DNA. All clues pointed to one conclusion: the Herreras did not leave alone. They were with someone, likely younger, stronger, leaving clear traces, but remaining anonymous to 2008 technology. The question lingered: who was this person, and why did they vanish with them? With the new evidence, police decided to expand the investigation to individuals connected to the Herrera family, while not ruling out the possibility of a calculated misdirection, given the evidence scattered across multiple locations. Deep down, they knew the case was slipping into a dead end. Every piece of evidence was valuable, but none strong enough to break through the murky darkness. In the days that followed, San Francisco media reported briefly, forensics confirm unidentified DNA in the Herrera family's car. This news heightened community unease, but also sparked hope that future technology might yield answers. For investigators, it was a pivotal shift from vague theories to a firm assertion that Miguel and Elena's disappearance was not random, but involved another's hand. That person, so far, remained a nameless shadow, hiding somewhere in the sprawling city. After the forensics lab issued its initial report, police returned to a familiar but critical approach, gathering statements from those who last saw or interacted with the Herreras. They hoped that among the hazy memories of neighbors, friends, and familiar locals, a detail might explain the mysterious DNA in the car. Over a few days, investigators knocked on dozens of doors around the Mission District. Mrs. Rosa, the neighbor across the street, reiterated that on the morning of June 14th, she saw Miguel talking to a young woman in their front yard. Her statement matched her earlier account during the initial search, but when pressed for more details, her recollection remained vague. She only recalled the woman was in her 30s, wearing a light-colored jacket, petite, with neatly tied black hair. "I only glanced at her," Rosa sighed. "I didn't think it was such a big deal." Investigators noted it, but knew the description was too generic to verify. Other neighbors said that morning they saw Elena watering plants on the porch, nodding to early market goers, but from late morning onward, no one saw the Herreras. The owner of the small grocery store on Mission Street, where Miguel bought his daily lottery ticket, said he stopped by around 9 a.m., chatting cheerfully and buying some produce. The owner saw nothing unusual. He even said the weather was nice, might eat lunch in the garden. That was the last time he saw Miguel. Friends from Mission Dolores Church were also questioned. They confirmed the couple attended services regularly, never had conflicts or debts. Carolina said her parents lived frugally, with little cash and no significant assets beyond their small home. This led police to lean toward their initial theory: if not a standard robbery, it could be a kidnapping for ransom. The ransom kidnapping theory was discussed in a brief SFPD meeting. However, they faced a stark reality. A week had passed since the Herreras vanished, yet no calls, messages, or notes demanding ransom had come. In most ransom cases, perpetrators contact early to apply pressure. The absolute silence here nearly collapsed the theory. They moved to a second theory: the Herreras might have been victims of a local gang. The Mission District, though a long-standing Latin community, had its issues: street gangs, drug trafficking, and sporadic violence. Police considered whether Miguel or Elena had witnessed something or been caught in a conflict, but cross-referencing local crime records for that date found no matching incidents. A local security officer noted that Mission gangs typically targeted rivals, debtors, or those tied to drugs. The Herreras, a quiet, church-going elderly couple, had no such connections. No evidence suggested threats, no gang tags marked their home, no anonymous calls. The gang theory quickly became another dead end. In the official report, the investigator summarized, robbery and ransom kidnapping ruled out due to no stolen assets or ransom demands. Gang theory lacks solid basis. Further avenues needed. The cold, typed lines reflected the team's deadlock. The Herrera family, per police advice, waited anxiously. Carolina repeatedly asked, if it's not robbery, not kidnapping, not gangs, then who did this to my parents? No investigator could answer. They knew a third party was involved. DNA and fibers confirmed it. But the person's identity, motive, and methods remained shrouded in mystery. In the following days, police continued interviewing scattered witnesses, a taxi driver who might have driven a young woman from the Mission District that day, a fruit vendor who thought he saw Elena by the roadside with a stranger. But no accounts aligned, all too fragmented to form a key lead. The team felt like they were navigating a maze where every path led to a dead end. Finally, a consolidated theory was submitted. The Herreras likely knew or trusted someone enough to let them into their car. That person then drove them to Daly City and vanished. The wallet in Oakland was seen as deliberately placed to suggest the victims had gone farther than they had. The report ended with identity of the third party undetermined. For investigators, this was a painful failure. For the Herreras, it was a pit of despair. For the community, it was new unease. A kind elderly couple could vanish in broad daylight, leaving police with only vague statements, an abandoned car, a stray wallet, and theories atop theories. In the first 10 days, all efforts led to nothing. The first 10 days passed hopelessly, followed by weeks with no significant leads. Police rechecked old cameras and local crime records, but all stopped at baseless theories. 6 months later, a heavy air enveloped the Herrera family and their neighborhood. Neighbors kept posters of Miguel and Elena's kind faces on shop doors, but they faded under rain and sun. Prayer vigils continued at Mission Dolores Church, yet even the priest admitted, "We've prayed for a miracle too long without an answer." For SFPD, the harsh truth was that all leads were exhausted. The unknown DNA from the car had been analyzed to the limits of 2008 technology, remaining a nameless profile in CODIS. The dark blue fibers from the back door and car were sealed in evidence bags, stored in a cold vault. Faint fingerprints were photographed, logged, and archived. All evidence, once sparking hope, now sat silently in numbered boxes, stacked in the criminal records storage room. In early 2009, the Herreras' disappearance was officially labeled a cold case. No dedicated team would track it daily anymore. Their file joined San Francisco's long list of unsolved cases. For Carolina and her family, this was a second wound. First, when their parents vanished. Now, when the investigation all but stopped. Occasionally, tips trickled in. A homeless person claimed to have seen a couple resembling Miguel and Elena near the Bay Bridge. A truck driver swore he saw two elderly people at a rest stop near Sacramento. But police checks found only mistakes. Each false lead drained the Herreras further, eroding their fragile hope. Carolina, refusing to let the case fade, formed a small community group to keep it visible. They printed more posters, held candlelight vigils, wrote to the police chief. But the media moved on. San Francisco, ever brimming with news stories, swept past. The elderly couple's disappearance became a vague haunt, mentioned in late-night neighbor chats. The Herreras, remember? No one knows where they went. In SFPD's internal file, the case was marked, "No new leads, evidence preserved, status, cold." These stark words closed the investigation's first phase, but they opened a long, silent stretch over a decade. The evidence sat sealed, waiting for technology and luck to bring it back to light. For the Herreras, the first 6 months were panic, but the years after were the true hell, living in wait without answers, in a bustling city forever missing their parents' familiar presence. Nearly a decade after the Herrera case was shelved as a cold case, no ransom calls, no confessions from suspects in other crimes, and no bodies were found. The family grew accustomed to quiet pain, waiting hopelessly. But in 2018, a new breeze stirred at the San Francisco Police Department. With DNA technology advancing, especially genetic genealogy, veteran investigators proposed revisiting dormant cases, including the Herrera's disappearance. The cold case unit was reformed, uniting seasoned investigators and young forensic experts skilled in new tech. They dug up dusty evidence boxes, including the unknown DNA from the back seat of Miguel's car in 2008. Previously checked against CODIS with no results. This time they tried their luck with a new method, advanced analysis by Parabon Nanolabs, renowned for breakthroughs in reconstructing suspect faces from DNA. In early March 2018, the DNA sample was packaged, labeled, and shipped to Parabon in Virginia. During the wait, investigators were on edge, knowing the results could be nothing or the first break in a decade. 3 weeks later, Parabon's report arrived with a digital file, a snapshot, a profile reconstructed from the DNA of the mystery person in the car's back seat. The reconstructed image showed a young woman with slightly tanned skin, a mix of Latin and European features. Estimated age, in 2008, 25 to 30. Straight black hair, dark brown eyes, small face, high cheekbones. In 2008, police only knew the DNA didn't match the victims. Now, they had a specific lead on the suspect's appearance. Some investigators whispered, "This is the first time we're seeing their shadow." The new information was added to the reinvestigation report. The Herrera file, forgotten for a decade, was back on the command desk. The cold case unit rebuilt the timeline from scratch, from the morning of June 14, 2008, when neighbors saw Miguel buy a lottery ticket, to noon when Carolina found the empty house, to the car found in Daly City, to the wallet in Oakland. They pieced it with the DNA portrait. A young woman, possibly the one Rosa saw talking to Miguel. A young woman, possibly in the car's back seat, leaving traces. A young woman, possibly dropping Elena's wallet in Oakland. After a decade of dead ends, the new lead electrified the cold case unit. They knew they needed to dig deeper, build a family tree, find relatives, and identify the woman in the portrait. More importantly, the report reignited hope for the Herreras. When police shared the results with Carolina, she broke down, both terrified and relieved. After years in a void, there was finally a concrete image, a face representing who might be responsible for her parents' disappearance. For the Mission District community, the news revived faded memories. Media republished the sketch, urging anyone who saw a similar woman in 2008 to contact police. Dozens of calls flooded the hotline, mostly guesses, but some recalled a woman resembling the portrait lingering around Mission markets in the late 2000s. 10 years of silence gave way to a new spark. Though its destination was unclear, the final report to superiors ended with a brief line. "After 10 years, we have a new direction." That direction began with the DNA portrait, a nameless face challenging the San Francisco police's every effort. The Parabon snapshot reignited the decade-cold case, but a face wasn't enough. SFPD investigators knew turning the sketch into a concrete identity required a new proven technique, genealogical DNA, comparing the unidentified sample to public genetic databases and building a family tree to trace the match. In June 2018, Parabon experts and California genetic analysts began the process. The DNA from the Herrera car's backseat was sequenced in detail, yielding a profile with hundreds of thousands of markers. This was uploaded to GED Match, a platform where millions of Americans voluntarily shared DNA to find lost relatives. Initially, the system returned thousands of partial matches from distant fourth cousins to closer second or third degree relatives. The genealogist's next task was matching names to family records, public documents, and demographic data. They spent weeks building family branches, linking birth, death, and marriage records, and cross-referencing social media. From thousands of names, The list narrowed to hundreds, then dozens across the U.S. applying age, gender, and ancestry filters tightened the scope further. By late summer 2018, the team identified about 30 matching individuals in California. One family branch stood out repeatedly, the Torres family. Of Mexican origin, they had multiple branches in the Bay Area. Coincidentally, old SFPD records noted vague witness accounts of a young Latin woman near the Herrera home in 2007, 2008. The lead cold case investigator exclaimed in a meeting, "If we're right, this woman left DNA in the car, and now genealogy points us to the Torres family." No one was 100% certain, but the pieces were aligning. The snapshot portrait, Rosa's statement about a young woman with Miguel, and now a prominent family in the genetic data were converging. Torres family names were scrutinized further. Who lived near the Mission District in 2008? Who had a criminal record or shady ties? Personal records were reviewed. Police files, vehicle registrations, old phone directories. A preliminary report noted, from thousands of initial individuals, we've narrowed to dozens in California. The Torres branch stands out, requiring thorough review of each member. After 10 years of stalemate, police had their most specific lead yet. But they knew the next step would be daunting, picking a name from the list tied to the DNA portrait and proving it with hard evidence, not just genealogy. The Herrera case was reprioritized. The hunt for the mystery person's identity was entering a new phase, where genetic science and investigative work would intersect to unravel the mystery lingering since the summer of 2008. The Torres family names were meticulously vetted, and one profile stood out, Shelly Ann Torres, born 1977, 41 years old in 2018. The cold case unit's report opened with a brief but weighty line: criminal record, theft, drug possession, multiple arrests for public disturbance. Shelly was no stranger to Bay Area law enforcement. From the late 1990s to early 2000s, her name appeared sporadically in police files, often tied to petty theft, debts, and methamphetamine. When investigators cross-checked Shelly's 2008 residence, a detail caught their attention. She lived in a cheap rented apartment just a few blocks from the Herrera's home. The Mission District then was complex, blending multi-generational Latin families with new immigrants and those exploiting the chaotic environment to hide illicit activities. Shelly, with her troubled history, fit right into that scene. Some witnesses from the case's early days, especially Rosa, the neighbor across the street, recalled Miguel talking to a young woman on June 14, 2008. No one could identify her then. But now, comparing Parabon's DNA sketch to Shelly's old mugshot, the resemblance was striking. Same light brown skin, same angular face, same black hair. It couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. Police traced Shelly's 2008 activities. She frequented local shops, including the grocery store the Herreras once ran before retiring. It's likely she interacted with Miguel or Elena as a customer or simply passing by. This could explain why they let her talk in their front yard that morning without suspicion. Shelly's profile revealed she was struggling in 2008, unemployed, behind on rent, often embroiled in neighborhood disputes. This was the portrait of someone prone to crime, desperate, broke, and familiar with the area. For the cold case unit, Shelly stood out not just due to genealogical data, but because of her chilling fit with the broader picture. An internal meeting was held, with Shelly's photo pinned to a whiteboard alongside the DNA sketch and details from the Herrera case, the car abandoned in Daly City, Elena's wallet in Oakland, the blue fiber, and the strange shoe prints in the house. Connections emerged. Shelly lived nearby, was seen in the neighborhood, had a criminal record, matched the physical description, and was now indirectly implicated by DNA. Though lacking direct evidence, the pieces were converging on one name. To be certain, police investigated the broader Torres family. Some of Shelly's cousins lived across California, but none resided near the Mission District in 2007, 2008, or had notable criminal records. Shelly remained the only standout in the family tree, convincing investigators she belonged on the primary suspect list. In late 2018, a 40-plus page report was sent to SFPD Command, recommending an in-depth investigation of Shelly Ann Torres. The conclusion stated, high likelihood Shelly Torres directly interacted with the Herrera victims on June 14, 2008. Recommend surveillance and further biological evidence collection for confirmation. After a decade of dead ends, a name finally rose from the data sea. Shelly Ann Torres was no longer just a woman with petty convictions, but the centerpiece of San Francisco's most haunting disappearance case of the early 21st century. When Shelly Ann Torres emerged as the prime suspect in the Cold Case Unit's 2018 report, the case surged forward. But investigators knew the gap between suspicion and conviction was vast. They couldn't rely solely on genealogical data or physical resemblance to charge her. They needed something definitive, undeniable. Shelly's DNA perfectly matching the sample from Miguel Herrera's car in 2008. For the next 3 years, SFPD patiently gathered information on Shelly. They tracked her movements, learning that after years of instability in San Francisco, she had moved to San Jose, renting a small apartment in a mid-range complex, living alone and working sporadic jobs at diners. Her old convictions lingered, but she kept a lower profile, leaving few traces on paper. This made approaching her tricky. There was no legal basis yet for an arrest or direct DNA sample. In early 2022, with DNA testing technology advancing and pressure from the Herrera family unrelenting, police acted. A surveillance team was sent to San Jose, taking turns monitoring Shelly's daily routine. They watched her shop, visit coffee shops, and take the bus to night shifts. Every move was documented. The breakthrough came one February morning. Shelly stopped at a small coffee shop near downtown, sat alone in a corner, drank a latte, and left, leaving behind a paper cup with faint lipstick traces. The surveillance team swiftly retrieved the cup before staff could clear it. It was sealed in a plastic evidence bag, labeled, and sent straight to the forensics lab. Inside, technicians carefully collected skin cells and saliva residue. In the 14 years since Miguel and Elena vanished, the investigative team had never been as tense as when awaiting these results. Weeks later, the official report arrived at SFPD. The first page's bolded line nearly stopped hearts. Result: 100% match. Shelly Ann Torres's DNA perfectly matched the sample from the back seat of Miguel Herrera's car in 2008. No room for chance, no room for theories. The person in that car was Shelly. In an urgent meeting after the results, the lead investigator declared, "We have our prime suspect." This perfect match shifts Shelly Torres from a hypothesis to the investigation's central target. All eyes in the file-cluttered room turned to Shelly's old mugshot. The image of a middle-aged woman with disheveled hair and tired eyes now embodied the mystery haunting San Francisco for over a decade. For Carolina Herrera, when police shared the results, she fell silent for a long time. 14 years had worn her hope thin. But now a specific name, backed by undeniable evidence, emerged. She told the press, "I don't know how I feel." Relieved to finally have an answer, but pained to know the person who did this has been living normally all these years. The result transformed the case. Shelly Ann Torres was no longer a vague name on a family tree, but the official prime suspect in Miguel and Elena's disappearance. Prosecutors began preparing an arrest warrant, coordinating with San Jose police to ensure every step was legal, avoiding loopholes defense attorneys could exploit. The internal report stated, DNA evidence from a discarded item confirms Shelly Ann Torres as the source of the DNA in Miguel Herrera's car in 2008. This is the most significant breakthrough in 14 years. Investigators knew the road ahead remained long, questioning Shelly, seeking a confession, possibly locating bodies if they existed. But for the first time, they had a name tightly bound by science. Surveillance of Shelly continued for weeks post-results. Police noted her routine: morning market trips, noon returns home, occasional evenings with a small group of friends. None of her neighbors knew the quiet woman carried a horrific secret, soon to be dragged into the light after 14 years. 2022 became the pivotal year for the Herrera case. From a cold file it was reignited by a discarded coffee cup. In San Francisco City Hall corridors, prosecutors whispered, "We've got a killer. Now it's time to find what's missing," where Miguel and Elena vanished forever. When Shelly Ann Torres's DNA confirmed her presence in Miguel Herrera's car, the cold case unit moved to the next step, reconstructing the June 14, 2008 timeline, integrating prior knowledge with new data. The goal was not just to place Shelly at the scene, but to pinpoint her at every key moment of the disappearance. Investigators started with Daly City, where Miguel's sedan was abandoned in a quiet alley. In 2008, police had recovered blurry footage from a nearby store camera too low quality for conclusions then. Now, with advanced image processing, they tasked the digital forensics team with restoring it. After weeks of color correction, sharpening, and motion analysis, a crucial detail emerged around 7 p.m. on June 14. The video showed a woman leaving the alley after the car was parked, petite, hair tied high, wearing a light-colored jacket. The image couldn't be zoomed to show her face, but compared to the DNA snapshot description, experts deemed it highly consistent with Shelly Torres at age 30. The internal report highlighted in red, Daly City camera captured a female figure matching the suspect's description, leaving the scene after the car was abandoned. This was the first time, in 14 years, police had indirect evidence of Shelly's presence at the car's location. Concurrently, another team revisited Oakland, where Elena's wallet was found. They sought 2,008 witnesses still in the International Boulevard area. Some had moved, but a few remained. David Morales, a small grocery store owner near the wallet's discovery site, had vaguely mentioned a young woman passing by back then, but couldn't identify her. When shown photos, including Shelly's old mugshot, Morales exclaimed, "That's her. I remember seeing her around the neighborhood. Definitely around that time. She passed my store a few times, once asking for bus stop directions." This, though not ironclad legal proof, strongly supported the theory that Shelly was linked to both the car's abandonment and the wallet's appearance in Oakland. Two key locations, miles apart, on the same day, both bore traces pointing to one person. Police pieced together the timeline. That morning, neighbor Rosa saw Miguel talking to a young woman, likely Shelly, outside. Near noon, Carolina found the empty house. That evening, the car appeared in Daly City, with cameras capturing a woman leaving. A week later, Elena's wallet surfaced in Oakland, where a witness confirmed seeing Shelly. The once scattered trail now formed a cohesive path. Shelly's footprints appeared at the start, middle, and end. In a strategy meeting, the lead investigator presented a large diagram, an arrow from the Mission District, where the Herreras vanished, another to Daly City, where the car was left and Shelly's figure was spotted, and finally to Oakland, where the wallet appeared with a witness identifying Shelly. The 3 points formed a binding triangle, with one name at its center, Shelly Ann Torres. A veteran officer remarked, "We've gone from an unknown DNA sample to a face, then a name. Now the timeline shows Shelly at every critical link. This isn't coincidence. It's a continuous story." Though Miguel and Elena remained unfound, the truth was becoming clearer. The official file, for the first time in 14 years, bore a stern line: official suspect, Shelly Ann Torres. In September 2022, with the 100% DNA match and timeline evidence placing Shelly at key points, SFPD moved to direct action, summoning Shelly for formal questioning. A subpoena was issued, and that morning, she appeared at San Francisco Police Headquarters in a worn hoodie, hair hastily tied, face calm but eyes darting. The interrogation began with routine questions. 2 investigators, one leading, one observing, asked about Shelly's life in the Mission District in 2008. She admitted living there, knowing some stores and shopping around, but when asked if she knew the Herreras, she shook her head. "I've never heard of them. I don't know who they are." Her voice was steady, but her eyes blinked rapidly, a detail the observing investigator noted. When asked about June 14, 2008, Shelly seemed flustered. She gave a weak laugh. How can I remember a specific day from years ago? I don't know what I did or where I was. This wasn't surprising, but when reminded it was the day the Herreras vanished and the neighborhood was locked down, she paused, then said, "If something like that happened, I might have heard rumors. I wasn't involved." The questioning grew direct. Investigators mentioned the car in Daly City and the wallet in Oakland. Shelley shrugged, saying she'd never been to Daly City and rarely visited Oakland. "I didn't even have a car. How could I be involved?" she said, voice rising as if to convince. The investigators nodded, took notes, and didn't counter immediately. Then came the turning point. One investigator placed a file on the table, opening to a bolded line, 100% DNA match. He read slowly, "We compared the DNA from Miguel Herrera's car in 2008 to a sample from an item you recently left behind. It's a perfect match. Shelley, you were in that car that day." Shelley's face visibly changed. Her feigned calm shattered. She leaned forward, lips pursed, eyes glaring at the file before looking away. After a moment, she forced a laugh. "DNA? So what? I hitched rides with lots of people. Maybe I got in their car sometime. It doesn't mean I'm tied to a disappearance." But her trembling voice, tapping hands, and evasive gaze betrayed her. The investigators pressed. "If it was just a ride, why was your DNA in the back seat of the exact car the Herreras drove the day they vanished? Why was a blue fiber matching your 2008 clothing found in the car and on their back door?" Shelley fell silent, biting her lip, staring at the floor. The interrogation lasted nearly 4 hours. Shelley repeatedly denied knowing the Herreras, recalling June 14, 2008, or explaining her DNA in the car. She requested a break, drank water, and returned with the same refrain. "I don't know. I'm not involved." But her hesitations and silences when DNA was mentioned became critical psychological evidence. The report noted suspicious reactions, signs of withholding information, no reasonable explanation for DNA presence. Shelley left the room exhausted, sweat soaking her collar. Police couldn't arrest her yet, needing more evidence to solidify the case. But the first interrogation confirmed Shelley knew more than she admitted. From the moment her face fell at 100% match, the investigation entered a new phase, focused on forcing Shelley to reveal the truth she'd buried for 14 years. The first interrogation with Shelley Ann Torres ended, leaving a tense atmosphere in the room. Investigators knew they'd cornered their prime suspect, but the pieces weren't fully aligned. Shelley's unease over the DNA results and lack of a plausible explanation heightened suspicion. However, as the cold case unit and forensics team reviewed the case for the next steps, a detail resurfaced, one noted earlier but never fully weighted: the strange shoe prints in the Herrera home in 2008. The old report described them clearly. Prints on the tiled floor near the back door were larger than Miguel's feet, with a pattern unmatched to any household shoes. Comparing them to Shelley's typical shoe size revealed a stark difference. The prints were men's, size 9 to 10, far larger. This raised a new question: if Shelley's DNA was in the car but the prints weren't hers, who else entered the home? To address this, forensics technicians re-examined the sealed evidence bag from the back door handle. In 2008, technology couldn't separate mixed DNA, but now, with next-generation analysis, they detected a secondary DNA sample. It was faint, less complete than Shelley's, but enough to confirm another person touched the door the day of the disappearance. The findings stunned the team. For 14 years, Shelley was seen as a lone suspect. Now, evidence suggested at least 2 people were involved. The secondary DNA didn't match any CODIS records, meaning the other person had no major criminal history or federal DNA on file. But its mere existence opened a new theory: Shelley didn't act alone. In a strategy meeting, the timeline diagram was updated. A red line linked the shoe prints to the secondary DNA. Another arrow tied the abandoned car in Daly City to the female figure on camera. The lead investigator asked, if Shelley was the woman leaving the car, who was with her? possibly overpowering Miguel and Elena. Who left the large prints in the house and maybe drove the car? The internal report was updated. Likely Shelly Ann Torres had at least one unidentified accomplice. Investigation must expand in this direction. Detectives began reviewing Shelly's 2007-2008 connections. Records showed she associated with men with minor criminal records, often in the Mission District. One was arrested for weapon possession, another for petty robbery. But after 2010, most vanished from criminal records, some moving out of state, others going quiet. The Herrera family was informed of the new finding. Carolina, stunned, asked, "So, not just one person, but at least two entered my parents' home that day?" The question cut deeper into her unhealed pain. The idea of multiple perpetrators made the scenario more terrifying. Her parents were overwhelmed by more than one person, leaving no chance to resist. Investigators knew identifying the accomplice was critical. For now, they focused on strengthening the theory. The secondary DNA, large shoe prints, and Shelly's ties to men in the Mission District formed a logical chain. Shelly likely approached the Herreras, leveraging familiarity to gain trust. The accomplice, possibly male, directly subdued and escorted them out, then joined Shelly in removing the couple. The investigation shifted. Shelly's old connections were analyzed. Detectives scoured old files and 2008 witness statements, hoping someone saw Shelly with an unfamiliar man, all to answer the question haunting the case for 14 years. Shelly didn't act alone. Who was her accomplice? After reanalyzing evidence and confirming an unidentified accomplice, SFPD couldn't delay further. Shelly Ann Torres's DNA perfectly matched the car sample. Cameras and witnesses placed her in Daly City and Oakland, and the accomplice theory strengthened the case. In July 2022, after months of surveillance, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office signed an arrest warrant. That morning, as Shelly arrived at a San Jose probation office for a routine check-in, required due to her drug and theft convictions, officers were waiting. She was asked to step aside, and cold handcuffs locked her wrists. An officer read aloud, "Shelly Ann Torres, you are under arrest for kidnapping and murder related to the 2008 disappearance of Miguel and Elena Herrera." The news exploded. Bay Area media swarmed the police station, cameras zooming in on Shelly's tanned face, disheveled hair, and panicked eyes as she was led to a patrol car. 14-year cold case cracked. Headlined the San Francisco Chronicle. Local TV aired footage of the police car leaving San Jose, taking Shelly to San Francisco for questioning and detention. In the Mission District, the Herrera name resurfaced in the news after years of silence. Carolina Herrera was notified by police the same day. Receiving the call, she sat silently in her familiar kitchen, hands cradling her head. A mix of relief and piercing pain ran down her spine. After 14 years, the person she'd waited to hear named was now in handcuffs. But Carolina knew this was just the beginning. The police still hadn't found her parents, and the truth of what happened on June 14, 2008, remained in the shadows. In the official press conference, the SFPD spokesperson confirmed Shelly Ann Torres was charged with kidnapping and murder. He said, "We believe Shelly Torres was directly involved in removing Miguel and Elena Herrera from their home, and DNA evidence proves she was in the victim's car the day they vanished." When asked about a possible accomplice, he declined to elaborate, only stating, "The investigation is ongoing." Images of Shelly's arrest spread rapidly across national news. To the public, it was a shock. A middle-aged woman living quietly in San Jose was the prime suspect in the disappearance of an elderly couple that haunted San Francisco. Sensational headlines followed. Cold case shocker. Woman arrested in 2008 disappearance, and 14 years later, justice catches up. In a temporary holding cell in San Francisco County, Shelly sat with her head bowed, refusing media questions and interviews. Her assigned public defender immediately declared her innocence. But the prosecution held a clear advantage, a 100% DNA match, Witnesses, cameras, and the full genealogical picture. Everything stacked against Shelley. For the police, Shelley's arrest was not just a victory, but a turning point. They could now press her in multiple interrogations, probing for cracks to uncover what the Herrera family most wanted, where their parents were taken. The investigative team noted in their report, Shelley Ann Torres' arrest marks a shift from suspicion to prosecution. She is now the central suspect in the Herrera case. San Francisco was shaken, and the nation watched. A case dormant for 14 years flared back to life, with a handcuffed woman led before cameras. But for the Herrera family, this light brought only half an answer. They knew the real fight was just beginning, to force Shelley to reveal the truth and identify who, besides her, contributed to the mysterious disappearance. Shelley Ann Torres was detained in an SFPD interrogation room days after her arrest, and the police decided to deliver their decisive blow. They knew time wasn't on their side. The public defender was ready with arguments about the right to silence, and DNA only proves presence, not crime. If they couldn't shake Shelley now, the chance to extract the truth could slip away. The pivotal interrogation began on a stifling July 2022 afternoon. In a small, neon-lit room, Shelley sat in a metal chair, arms tightly crossed. 3 investigators took turns. They started by laying out all evidence. The 100% DNA match between the sample from Miguel's car and Shelley's, the Daly City camera, showing a petite woman leaving the alley, the Oakland witness who saw her near where Elena's wallet was discarded. Each piece was presented with photos, documents, and scientific reports. Shelley initially remained cold. She shrugged, answering curtly. That wasn't me, but her voice grew unsteady. When an investigator placed the DNA snapshot next to her old mugshot and said slowly, Shelley, every piece of evidence points to you. You were in the car. You were in Daly City. You were in Oakland. No one else. It was you. Her hands began to tremble, though her gaze stayed defiant. After 4 relentless hours, Shelley's defenses cracked. She sighed, casting a weary glance at the frosted glass window, knowing someone watched. What do you want from me? She asked, voice hoarse. An investigator leaned forward. We want the truth. The Herrera family has waited 14 years. They deserve to bring their parents to rest. Shelley bowed her head, silent, for a long time. The silence was so heavy the room seemed frozen. Then, unexpectedly, she broke down, not theatrical tears, but choked, prolonged sobs. I didn't kill them, she repeated. I didn't mean to, but things went too far. Investigators waited patiently. After minutes, Shelley looked up, face streaked. That day, I went to their house. I needed money, thought they could help. But it wasn't what I expected. I wasn't alone. Her words confirmed the accomplice theory police had suspected. Pressed further, Shelley shook her head, refusing to name her companion. But under mounting pressure, she revealed the critical truth where Miguel and Elena were taken. We drove them south of the city, she said, trembling, to an abandoned marsh near Bayview, a place no one visits. He said, we had to finish it, leave no trace. I just watched and helped ditch their things. The room fell into heavy silence. Investigators scribbled every word. Bayview, San Francisco's southeastern coastal area, once industrial, now desolate, with abandoned lots and salt marshes. If Shelley was truthful, this could be the burial site of a 14-year secret. An investigator pressed, where are the bodies, Shelley? Exactly where? She hesitated, then gestured. We took a dirt road past a rusty fence, near old storage tanks. There's a small path to the marsh. There we dug a shallow pit. Her voice broke. I never went back. I swear. The investigator locked eyes with her. You've just given the Herreras what they've waited 14 years for. If you're truly remorseful, help us find the exact spot. Shelley didn't respond, only slumped onto the table, sobbing. The interrogation ended with a report stating, suspect Shelley Ann Torres admitted to, with an accomplice, taking Miguel and Elena Herrera to an abandoned marsh near Bayview, San Francisco, and leaving their bodies there. After 14 years, the truth emerged. not from new physical evidence, but from the desperate confession of a woman who denied until the end. For the San Francisco police, this was a pivotal breakthrough. For the first time, they had a specific location to find the answer. The Herrera family had awaited for nearly a lifetime. Days after Shelley's confession, SFPD and forensics teams descended on Bayview, San Francisco's southeastern coastal area. Once industrial, it was now abandoned, dotted with empty lots and salt marshes, overgrown with tall weeds. The search team set up white tents, strung yellow tape, and brought small excavators, metal detectors, and K9 units. A tense air hung over them. Everyone knew this could be the day to answer a 14-year question. Investigators combed the area per Shelley's description, a dirt road past a rusty fence, near derelict storage tanks. The team waded through mud, feet sinking into algae-scented earth. A forensic officer pointed to an odd patch, sparse grass, slightly sunken ground. A handheld seismic scanner detected an anomaly below. The digging crew began, using shovels and hands to clear layers of soil. After over 2 hours, a shovel hit something hard, and the air stilled. Experts carefully cleared the surrounding dirt, revealing human bones. A shallow pit, less than half a meter deep, held the remains of 2 people, stacked atop each other. Time and harsh conditions had eroded much, but traces of old clothing and personal items remained. The forensics team paused in reverent silence. 4 gloved officers bowed their heads as the lead investigator whispered, "Miguel and Elena, we've found you." White body bags were opened, bones gently placed inside, along with small bags of soil and related evidence. Initial identification relied on clothing and jewelry. On the smaller skeleton, likely Elena, was the familiar wooden bead necklace Carolina described in 2008. A silver wedding ring, tarnished but intact, remained. On the larger skeleton, experts found an old leather belt with a brass buckle, confirmed by the family as Miguel's. Each detail confirmed these were the couple who vanished one summer day in 2008. The remains were sent to the San Francisco County Coroner's Office. There, forensic pathologists conducted a thorough examination. Miguel's skull showed a large crack and clear fractures, indicating a heavy blow. Multiple broken ribs suggested severe beating. Elena's results were equally grim, a cracked skull and arm fractures from defensive wounds. The injuries occurred while alive, confirming the couple didn't die naturally, but were killed by direct violence. The forensic report stated, cause of death: severe traumatic brain injury, combined with multiple blunt force injuries. Both victims died from violent assault. The dry words confirmed what the Herreras had sensed for 14 years. Their parents didn't leave willingly. They were brutally murdered. When Carolina received the official news, she collapsed into a chair, hands covering her face. Though tears fell, she felt an odd relief. Her parents were found. The haunting question of where are they was answered. The Herrera family held a small prayer vigil at Mission Dolores Church, lighting 2 large candles, one for Miguel, one for Elena. The community packed the church, stunned that the kind elderly couple's remains lay buried in a forgotten shallow grave for over a decade. For the San Francisco police, recovering the bodies was an irreversible turning point. They now had not only DNA, witnesses, and a timeline, but physical remains, direct evidence of murder. Shelly Ann Torres could no longer deny. The accomplice, who left the large shoe prints, became a critical target to identify at all costs. That day, Bayview was no longer just an abandoned marsh, it became the site of a painful truth. The final revelation of Miguel and Elena Herrera's fate, after 14 years in darkness. From here, the Herrera case entered its fiercest phase, forcing Shelley to reveal all and hunting the accomplice still at large. In December 2022, after Miguel and Elena Herrera's remains were recovered from the Bayview Marsh, the case was officially handed to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. Every link now formed a complete picture. Shelly Ann Torres' DNA in Miguel's car, Elena's wallet, discarded in Oakland, the female figure on the Daly City camera, witnesses placing Shelley at the time, and finally the victim's remains with a forensic report confirming death by violence. All were compiled into a 300-plus page indictment charging Shelley with kidnapping and first-degree murder. The preliminary hearing took place at San Francisco's criminal court, drawing national media attention. In the courtroom, the prosecutor began by detailing the June 14, 2008 timeline. On a large screen, they displayed the crime scene, the Herrera home with strange shoe prints, the car abandoned in Daly City, the wallet in Oakland, Parabon's DNA snapshot, and the restored old camera footage. Next came the lab report, a 100% DNA match between Shelley and the car sample. Finally, they showed the most heart-wrenching image, 2 body bags lifted from the Bayview Marsh, paired with the forensic conclusion of brain trauma and broken bones. The prosecutor's voice was firm. For 14 years, the Herrera family awaited justice. Today, scientific evidence, witnesses, and physical proof point to one name, Shelley Ann Torres. She approached Miguel and Elena Herrera, with an accomplice removed them from their home, brutally attacked them, and buried their bodies in Bayview. Shelley's defense attorney tried to counter, arguing that DNA only proved presence, not murder. The Daly City camera was too blurry for identification, and the Oakland witness could have misremembered after years. He stressed, no one saw Shelley commit violence against the victims. But each rebuttal was dismantled by the prosecution's cohesive evidence. The DNA wasn't just in the car, but tied to a blue fiber matching evidence at the Herrera's back door. The blurry camera aligned with Shelley's description and was backed by witnesses. Most critically, Shelley herself admitted the bodies were in Bayview, and police found the remains exactly where she described. This was confirmation no coincidence or faulty memory could explain. The prosecutor concluded, the evidence speaks for victims who can no longer. Shelley Torres didn't just participate, she facilitated and was complicit in ending the Herrera's lives. The judge sat silently, then struck the gavel, declaring, the court finds sufficient grounds to proceed to a full trial. The room fell quiet, broken only by Carolina Herrera's stifled sobs in the audience. She gripped her hands, knowing after 14 years, justice was finally moving. The media erupted. Herrera cold case heads to trial. 14 years later, justice in motion. TV replayed Shelley, leaving the courtroom, head bowed, face gaunt, eyes dodging cameras. To the public, she was no longer a vague suspect, but a defendant in a formal trial. The defense attorney reassured the press that my client is innocent until proven guilty, but he knew the odds. With such a robust case, Shelley faced a grueling trial, where every piece of evidence, testimony, and frame of footage would be scrutinized before a jury. For the Herrera family, the judge's ruling meant the story wouldn't be shelved again. Their parents would finally be heard in court through the voice of justice. For San Francisco's community, the preliminary hearing closed a long stalemate, opening a decisive chapter in the quest for justice for the elderly couple who vanished on a summer day in 2008. Shelley Ann Torres's trial spanned weeks, with dozens of witnesses and hundreds of pages of scientific reports presented. The jury sat quietly as the prosecutor reconstructed every detail: the strange shoe prints in the Herrera home, the matching DNA in the car, the Daly City camera, the Oakland witness, and, most crucially, Shelley's confession leading police to the Bayview Marsh, where Miguel and Elena's bodies were found. Each piece was a link, tightening the noose around Shelley. The defense tried to maneuver, claiming Shelley was coincidentally involved, and her confession was given under psychological distress, but the argument was too weak against the complete picture. On verdict day, the courtroom was packed. Media crowded the halls, and the Mission District community showed up to witness. Carolina and her siblings sat in the front row, faces tense, hands clasped. When the judge asked the jury to announce the verdict, the room held its breath. The jury foreperson stood. Voice clear, we, the jury, having considered all evidence, find the defendant Shelley Ann Torres guilty of kidnapping and first-degree murder. A sob escaped Carolina, tears streaming down. Shelley sat rigid in the defendant's chair, eyes wide, then slumped, speechless. The judge struck the gavel, pronouncing the sentence, life imprisonment without parole. Your actions, proven by science and witnesses, were cruel and unforgivable. You will bear responsibility for the deaths of Miguel and Elena Herrera for life. The courtroom erupted, many in tears. The press flashed breaking news: San Francisco cold case, Shelley Torres sentenced to life without parole. It was the end of a case that hung over the community for 14 years. After the trial, the Herrera family received their parents' remains. A solemn funeral was held at a cemetery near the Mission District. 2 small coffins, draped in white, were placed side by side. Family, neighbors, and friends gathered to pay respects. Carolina spoke briefly, voice choked. My parents waited so long to come home. Today, we can lay them to rest in peace. At the funeral, candles flickered, their trembling light illuminating tear-streaked faces. It was not just grief, but relief. Justice had spoken. Miguel and Elena were no longer names in a cold file. Their dignity was restored, laid to rest in their family's embrace. For the San Francisco police, the verdict validated perseverance and modern forensic technology. From a clueless disappearance, a preserved DNA sample traced a family tree, identified a suspect, and brought a killer to justice. The case's final report stated, "This success reminds us no case is truly cold. Justice may come slowly, but it comes." For the Herrera family, the verdict didn't erase the pain, but closed a nearly 2-decade tragedy. They returned to life, carrying memories of their parents and faith that the truth always finds its way to light. Shelley Ann Torres's life sentence without parole closed a dark chapter in San Francisco's history, but its echoes lingered. For the San Francisco Police Department, the Herrera case became a hallmark of genealogical DNA's power. From a seemingly useless DNA sample stored for a decade, experts built a family tree, pinpointed a lineage, and narrowed to Shelley. This breakthrough not only solved the Herrera case, but spurred the cold case unit to reopen dozens of other dormant files. Internally, the Herrera file was cited as a case study showing how persistence and technology can defeat time. The media dubbed it San Francisco's cold case turning point. Major outlets framed it as a modern epic, a community waiting 14 years, a family refusing to give up, and a legal system leveraging science to deliver justice. National TV ran multi-part specials, tracing from the Mission District home to the Bayview Marsh to the courtroom where Shelley sat, head bowed, hearing her verdict. Headlines blared, "Justice after 14 years, genealogy DNA works miracles." San Francisco became a national focal point, a vivid example of reviving a cold case. However, the Herrera case's resolution left a lingering question unanswered: who was Shelley's accomplice? The large shoe prints in the Herrera home couldn't belong to Shelley. The secondary DNA on the back door handle wasn't hers either. During interrogation, Shelley admitted she wasn't alone, but refused to name the other person. Even after her conviction, she remained silent. This left investigators and the Herrera family haunted. Who was the other person, living normally somewhere, or long fled from California? The media dubbed this the second shadow of the Herrera case. Some investigative journalists traced Shelley's old connections, interviewing those who knew her in the Mission District in 2008. Some said she lived with a man. Others recalled her with a group of drug-addicted friends, but no one could provide a name with certainty. SFPD's final report noted, "Accomplice unidentified, investigation open." Thus, while the Herrera case was largely closed, one corner remained in shadow. In the community, the case's aftershocks were profound. For Mission District residents, the memory of the kind elderly couple vanishing in broad daylight, later found in a shallow Bayview grave, became a collective trauma. Prayer vigils continued years later, not just to honor Miguel and Elena, but to remind everyone how fragile safety can be. For the Herrera family, the legacy was a complex mix of grief and peace. They had the truth, laid their parents to rest, but lived with an unanswered question. SFPD viewed the case as a foundation for reform. The cold case unit received increased funding, and expanded collaboration with national DNA labs. Young investigators were trained extensively in genealogical DNA, learning to build family trees and leverage GED match data. Other cases, from disappearances to murders, were reopened in hopes of finding more Shelleys in hiding. At a 2023 National Police Conference, the Herrera case was presented as a model lesson: never deem a case hopeless if DNA remains. For the public, the case sparked debates about privacy and genetic data use. Many supported sharing DNA on platforms like GED Match, which brought justice to forgotten victims. Others worried their genetic information could be misused. Regardless, none could deny those data brought Miguel and Elena's truth to light. Ultimately, the Herrera case's greatest legacy was its message: justice may come late, but it doesn't vanish. The Herrera family waited 14 years to hear guilty. The community waited 14 years to see the case illuminated again. But when the truth was unearthed from the Bayview Marsh, all understood no darkness is thick enough to hide forever. Today, passing the small Mission District house where Miguel bought lottery tickets and Elena watered plants, neighbors still leave small flower bouquets at the door. They see it as a tribute and a reminder. A case once shook the city, solved not just by police work, but by persistence and scientific progress. This story, with all its pain and hope, will forever be part of San Francisco's memory. The story of Miguel and Elena Herrera's case is not just a cold criminal file solved after 14 years. It's a mirror reflecting many issues in American life today. First, it underscores the value of technology and patience. A tiny DNA sample, deemed useless in 2008, became the key when sent to Parabon Nanolabs in 2018. This teaches us that efforts today may not yield immediate results, but aren't futile. In work, education, or community, patience and belief in progress bring change. Second, the case highlights the role of community and family. Carolina Herrera, the victim's daughter, never stopped pressing and keeping the case alive. Had she given up, it might have stayed buried in storage. This is a lesson for American society today. Citizen and community persistence can pressure systems to act, from judicial reform to social justice. Third, the story warns of the fragility of everyday safety. Miguel and Elena were just a kind elderly couple, buying lottery tickets and watering plants that morning. Hours later, they were gone forever. This reminds us to cherish moments with loved ones and not take daily peace for granted. Finally, the Herrera case affirms justice may come late, but it can come if we keep searching and refuse to forget. This is a message every American can carry today, that perseverance, faith, and community connection are forces that let light triumph over darkness. Thank you for following the tragic yet hopeful story of the Herrera case, which found justice after 14 years. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to join us for more true crime stories, where justice may come late but never vanishes.